戲曲要唱做念打。
但人生有佢，雖然美無瑕。
人生萬變，
但係耶穌嘅愛就永遠不變啊！
佢哋開始到會服務，並唔係為咗賺錢。
We really see it as, the work we put in is to show that we are servants and to approach the world with humility and, to serve others and food and catering, events, it's the best place to do that.
今日能夠有清晰嘅目標，佢哋都走過唔少嘅彎路。
I really didn't care about much. I just kind of wanted to do what I wanted to do.
I felt that I was better than everyone else. I knew the answer. And so for me, I felt that I was blameless. I was like, no problems in my life.
They don't understand why I'm angry or why I'm bitter or why I was so frustrated. And that what I was doing wasn't ideal for them.
For me, I realized, man, that is not what faith is. Because if I knew everything, then there's no need for us to believe in a God.
《洛杉磯市嘅葛利菲斯天文台位於葛利菲斯公園裏面。喺1935年開放至今，歷史悠久。從天文台眺望，能夠俯瞰整個洛杉磯市中心，所以每年吸引無數嘅遊客前嚟參觀。華人移民到洛杉磯已經有悠久嘅歷史，尤其喺80年代，華人移民不斷湧入。佢哋慢慢喺呢一個城市落地生根。時至今日，呢啲華人移民嘅第二代亦相繼成長，成為社會上集合中西文化嘅一支強大新力軍。翁嘉怡 Casey、秦旨臻 Jedediah 阿 Jet， 亦好似好多華人移民嘅第二代一樣，已經長大成人，並且開始為自己嘅人生而努力。雖然 Casey 同 Jet 仲係一名學生，但係佢哋已經踏出第一步，開始自己嘅到會生意。雖然話係一盤生意，但係佢哋更加視佢為一個服務大眾嘅機會。
We really see it as, the work we put in is to show that we are servants and to approach the world with humility and, to serve others and food and catering, events, it's the best place to do that because it's, we clean up dishes, we clean the floor, we set up the tables, we close the tables down, and so it's an opportunity for us to be servants to the people around us. And I think this speaks a loud message to this world because it's not something that's typical, because we always talk about we have to strive to be the top. You want to be the one in charge, you don't want to be the servant. But it's the counter of that. It's the gospel message that teaches us to be servants in humility.
Food facilitating conversation and just being able to be more open and intimate with one another that allows people to develop stronger relationships. And we've been talking recently about how we need relationships in order to, we need to build bridges. These relationships are these bridges, and it has to be able to bear the weight of the gospel. And so we want to make sure that these relationships are solid so that people will have the opportunity to evangelize to their friends or whoever it is that we're serving. And for I guess when you're not doing events for, say, Christian organizations or for churches, it's just a way for us to show Christ's love. Not necessarily like explicitly evangelizing to them, but to show that we care through the integrity that we put into the food that we make and the service that we provide.
I think it's different. I think in this world today, to be a servant is not something that is glamorous. It's not something that is encouraged even. And to be a servant is a very big, I think, Christian virtue or Christian principle, is to be a servant to all as Jesus was a servant to all. And I think it's something that's shocking to the world around us. I think the food sector is never, it's not always a glamorous profession, especially in the Chinese culture. I think it's something that is a lot of work, it's hard work, little payoff even at times. And yeah, it's an opportunity for us to witness for Christ. And it's not necessarily, we're not out there preaching the gospel per se by words, but what we do is we really try to show it through our actions and love and servanthood and humility. And so for us, it's an opportunity to engage the world around us.
I can see how they've used the catering business to not only like live out what they're passionate about, which is like cooking and stuff, but to also be hospitable to everybody who they make the food for. How they pour their love for these people into the food that they make. They always work together to try to figure out like what is a good menu, I guess, for the people that they're serving. And it's I would say it's like a very tiring job. They spend like hours at night sometimes, like just like making the food and everything. They've always been very determined to make sure that what they're doing is their best. And I think that shows in just how they dedicate that time to serving people.
咁所以咧，佢好細個嗰時咧，煮嘢嗰時咧，佢就攞隻擔餐凳仔咁樣，就紮住個好 oversize 個圍巾咁樣紮住喺度，咁就睇住佢嫲點樣煮嘢咁樣學咯。佢好中意煮。其實佢哋嘅延伸咧就係響團契個事工咁樣開始延伸出嚟嘅。其實佢哋又好中意煮嘢噶嘛，佢好中意食嘢。咁佢華人係一個好大一個食嘅文化嚟嘅，我覺得而且如果佢可以用佢啲個才藝可以吸引到啲年青嘅，因為依家好中意講嗰啲所謂 fusion food 用呢個咁嘅途徑去吸引到啲人嚟，而讓佢哋可以信到主嘅話，呢個係一個非常好嘅一個事情嚟嘅。咁所以我都係好支持佢哋做呢樣嘢咯。
我呢個仔仔咧係好佢會自己做一個焗爐仔，揾錫紙拎出去曬太陽，然之後做 cookie 餅。因為好中意煮嘢㗎啦，由細到大。咁 Casey 我中意煮嘢，佢哋其實就成日都會做即係佢喺團契裏面煮俾啲弟兄姊妹食啊。喺大學裏面又會煮啲嘢俾啲弟兄姊妹食。咁我都覺得即係佢兩個煮嘢去接待唔同嘅教會，接待弟兄姊妹啊。咁我覺得呢個係好好咯。因為中國人講係一個食嘅文化嚟㗎嘛。食如果你用愛心去煮嘢，係一個，然之後用即係透過人傾偈啊，咁將整個嘅氣氛帶埋一齊，咁係一個好美嘅嘢嚟嘅。咁我見到佢煮，佢哋真係好用心去煮，即係好多嘅 details 啦。我講一個實例啦，咁你知我哋啲中國媽咪就會慳㗎嘛，咁啲盤啲星盤有時候我整個沙律唔緊要，洗乾淨再用啦咁。咁佢哋就話唔用得㗎，有 health hazard 㗎，呢個唔可以用嘅。即係佢哋係真係好細心，佢哋唔係話我要賺錢，而係佢係將個心擺落去，佢挑選嘅貨物啊、食物啊，佢都係諗過，然之後買嘅係好新鮮嘅食材。年輕人有呢個 passion 係好嘅，咁我就好鼓勵佢哋，即係我係做 serve 更多嘅人，讓人睇到your difference。
今日 Casey 同 Jet 對信仰認真嘅態度，同佢哋至少喺教會成長有一定嘅關係。
Grew up in a Christian family. I don't remember a day that I wasn't in church. I don't remember a day that I didn't know there was a God. And so I from crib, I was in I was in church, and so I grew up in church for my entire life. So I think a lot of it was, remember being, it was always required for me to be at church. Sundays were a big deal. So my parents made it a thing that I had to be at church. And so I was always, dress up and you get up in the morning, go to church. My parents served a lot in church, and so they were pretty involved. My dad was a deacon, and then my mom was a children's ministry coordinator for many years. And so we were always at church, and then I remember always being the last one to leave church in the afternoon as well. So it was always clean up and always just taking things down. And then grew up in vacation Bible school, Sunday school. So just always in church, always church activities, church events. I was always there.
All my life kind of grew up in the church. As far as I can remember, people tell me that I was passed around from auntie to auntie all the time. And so that was something, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty much, I've grown up in more or less in a Christian bubble, at least up until high school. And so I was in that I was in a church environment for most of the time. I spent a lot of time after church because my dad would have meetings.
So I really relished, I think, in the fact of being a good child, a good kid, and then just being a good Christian. I loved, reading as a kid, so reading the Bible was fun, and memorizing things, and so I lived off rewarding of that. And so just being the kid in Sunday school that knew all the answers, and just being a smart kid. So I loved being that. So I think growing up, I was always just attracted to being that.
I guess it's a little bit different for me being like a pastor's kid. There's definitely a lot of pressure from the people at church to be good, be better behaved than all the other kids. But naturally, when they expect things like that from you, you kind of just rebel. And so from a young age, I was kind of the troublemaker. Me and my friends were the troublemakers. Do things that the parents don't like. Run around, make noise, argue, yell, scream, play, stuff like that. So stuff that parents don't generally like when they're trying to have meetings.
喺成長嘅過程中，佢哋慢慢開始對父母從小所灌輸嘅基督信仰產生懷疑，亦對自己嘅人生感到疑惑。
And I came to a point where I was really prideful. I was like, oh, I know everything about the Bible. I don't need to know anything more. I don't even need to go to church. I can teach you this, right? So being in church, I think I grew up a lot of it being, I knew a lot in my head. I knew a lot about who God is, and you can ask me any question in the Bible, I would have thrown you an answer. So a lot of it was just knowing God intellectually and knowing God through the head, but I think my heart was far from Him. I had no relationship with Jesus Christ. And so for me, I think, especially beginning years of college, kind of have to figure out what life was about, and what career path to pick, and what major to take in college, and who to belong in college, and where to find community and a group to belong in, and all that really pushed me to come to a point where I was trying to figure out, so what do I believe in? So is it something that my parents instilled in me, my parents taught me, my parents said it was a good thing and that's why I believe in it, just to please them, or was it something that I actually believed in, the faith that I had?
Jed 作為牧師嘅兒子，亦一樣要面對好多壓力，尤其當佢要跟隨爸爸搬到新嘅教會嘅時候，佢未能完全適應新環境，最終佢喺父母唔贊成嘅情況下離開教會。
And so part of that frustration was with God. It's just, I don't appreciate why you're changing my life. And so I was not happy about that situation, and so I decided, I had a little bit more autonomy and a little freedom. I was almost about ready to drive, so I kind of just got lazy.
響佢中學即係上咗高中之後，我諗嗰段時間就係佢開始冇去教會啦。咁特別係佢自己開車之後， 咁佢自己開咗之後咧，就我知道有時候佢開咗架車去公園，然之後翻嚟話俾我聽，佢去咗教會。咁而事實上佢嗰段時間咧，即係嗰段走過風暴期嘅時間啦，有冇去教會啊，或者係有一啲嘅頂撞嗰啲，咁佢就發脾氣，跟住走咗出去。所以我記得有一次佢真係即係發脾氣啊，咁佢係好少發脾氣嘅。我先生就出咗去揾佢，揸咗車，咁啊揾咗好耐揾唔到，咁翻嚟嘅時候我哋就即係跪低話俾神聽，即係。可能佢自己都面對住一啲嘅挑戰，因為佢係牧師嘅仔，人哋對佢嘅期許亦都唔一樣。
I had a lot of bitterness for having to leave the church that I was at before. There was some things that I couldn't reconcile with God, and so I didn't feel right coming before God a lot of the time, and I couldn't get myself to feel like I deserved to be around people who were, I guess, quote unquote, holy, right? And so I saw myself as kind of, even though I had a bunch of knowledge, I grew up in the church, I didn't feel like I was holy enough. Honestly, leading up to this point, like, I was like, whatever. I was pretty carefree. I really didn't care about too many things. And so, like, as much as I would believe it still, it's just kind of, it played a less significant role. It wasn't really that important to me, I guess. At this point, I had admitted that God was sovereign over things, and so my acknowledgement of that kind of made it a little more difficult for me to process. And so a little bit of bitterness developed there toward God. And so that created more of a separation. And when there's, as that kind of separation grew, I felt no need to kind of make the effort to try to come back.
作為 Jet 同 Casey 嘅父母，雖然都會擔心，但係佢哋都明白到呢一個係年輕人信仰探索嘅歷程。
每一個年青人，佢到咗10幾歲嘅時候，都揾緊我係邊個。以前佢會聽爹哋媽咪講我去教會啊，我要信呢一樣嘢。但係到佢10幾歲嘅時候，佢開始問我係邊個。呢一啲所謂哲學上面嘅問題。咁當佢去掙扎嘅時候，再唔係我講俾佢聽呢個神係點樣嘅一個神，而係佢自己要去經歷過。就算你係一個好你用咗好多心機教佢，但係有一日佢都要面對信仰係佢自己面對，因為神係冇 grandchildren 嘅。
都係啊，其實即係人咧，其實即係喺靈命上邊嗰種成長咯。好多時候我觀察佢哋都係受到呢個社會嘅啲唔同嘅價值觀嘅追求啊，或者有選擇嗰陣時係應該係點樣嘅選擇啊嗰陣時，可能佢哋都有一番嘅掙扎㗎，因為佢哋都有嗰啲所謂嘅 peer pressure 嚇，咁所以特別佢哋讀高中嗰陣時咁樣會有遇到唔同，或者我哋住嗰啲社區環境比較富裕啲嘅咁樣啲同學或者揸下名牌車啊咁樣，可能佢哋未必同我哋直接講，但係我哋都睇得出佢哋都會有呢啲有時都會有呢啲咁嘅追求，或者係俗世嗰種嘅追求咯。
即係我哋一路知道個情形嘅時候，我有同佢教會嘅年青嘅傳道人一路都有溝通。咁但係我哋亦都即係俾佢有足夠嘅空間。咁有一樣嘢我同佢爸爸一路做嘅就係我哋冇停過為佢禱告，將佢交翻俾神。神喺佢心路中慢慢神有佢嘅時間。咁所以我哋就俾佢有個空間嘅同時，我哋都一路俾緊 guidance 佢。咁第一嚟就係當佢念大學嘅時候咧，咁我哋就唯一嘅禱告，呢個係可能佢唔知嘅。我哋話神，我哋唯一禱告就係佢去到一間大學，佢可以喺嗰度面對神。我唔理佢去邊間大學，但係只要佢可以喺嗰度面對神，將佢嘅生命重新交翻俾神，呢個係我哋嘅禱告。咁神好有恩典啦，即係佢去到嘅大學就係喺佢第一二年嘅時候，神親自將佢拉翻嚟。
好多時候咧，就我哋為佢祈禱啊，咁最主要就係過一個過程之後咧， 佢係會自己會返到教會嚇。
因着家人嘅同心禱告 ，Jack 同 Casey 不約而同喺大學嘅時候返到上帝嘅身邊。
I think for my faith journey was transitioning from it being a religion, things I did and practiced and the right thing to do, if you will, to being a relationship where God understood everything I had. I think deep down inside, when I finally came to grips with God's grace and being humbled by Him, just understanding what the gospel really means in my life, I realized that, man, I'm most sinful because I was trying to hide all this sin. I was pretending that there was no sin in my life. Yeah, but mainly I think a lot of it was just realizing that I myself needed a savior. I needed Jesus.
I think the whole process up until this point was God trying to teach me humility, to really kind of not think of myself as so important or so, I guess, righteous or so great. Like I'm just kind of, when it comes down to it, I'm kind of a broken person, and that's just the way that it is. And so I think towards the end of my second quarter in college, I kind of had this moment where I was kind of realized that despite how incomplete I felt and despite how inadequate I felt, that God still had a purpose for my life, or God still loved me as a person. God still had an interest in my life. I realized that there was still value for me as a person. Like I didn't feel like I was doing anything much of importance or of value. So the fact that God still viewed me as a person with intrinsic value was something that kind of made me realize that, oh look, like there's a God, the creator of the universe still loves me for who I am, despite me being so, I guess, incomplete and so rebellious for having turned away for so long and for just kind of leaving that behind.
當 Casey 同 Jack 返去上帝身邊之後，佢哋嘅生命開始得到重整，並且重新投入教會生活。今日佢哋唔單止透過到會服務服侍社群，更加進入神學院接受神學同輔導訓練。
So I felt like I was very much a people person. I like to deal with people. I like to be around people. So I think for me, my calling in the ministry is really into preaching and teaching, but also pastoral care and counseling is what
how you can contribute to other people's lives. That's always been something in my heart that has been, I guess, in the right place, is that I'm willing to go the extra mile for other people.
The world around us struggles with a lot of things, especially my generation. We struggle with mental illness, we struggle with job security, we struggle with financial security, we struggle with family relationships, brokenness and all that. But the only way to solve that is to bring faith coupled with counseling into it.
But as I come into this profession, come into counseling, I realize that if I don't study for myself, if I don't acquire the knowledge that I need to do for myself, that it's definitely the heart of Christ to acquire that knowledge so that I can best serve my clients in the future, that I can best serve the people that I'm serving. We see all that we do as a service to God and a service to other people.
.今日 Casey 同 Jack 喺信仰裏面揾返真我，並且明白到生命嘅意義同方向。佢哋願意繼續服侍社群。如果你都想好似 Casey 同 Jack 一樣揾到人生方向，歡迎致電恩語生命熱線或者登入恩語之聲嘅網頁同我哋聯絡。 我哋好樂意同你分享基督信仰，願神賜福你。
滴滴恩語滋潤普世華人心靈。恩語之聲以世界各地華人經歷耶穌基督帶嚟生命改變嘅真實故事，透過全球電視同埋電台廣播網絡，仲有電腦互聯網廣傳福音，亦都以生命關顧電話熱線幫助有需要嘅人。我哋嘅事工好需要你經濟上嘅支持，就讓我哋繼續為福音齊心努力。